During World War I, a global food crisis emerged as farmers were recruited into military service and farmlands became battlefields. The burden of feeding millions, many of which were starving, fell to everyday Americans. In 1917, families left behind were encouraged, under the National War Garden Commission, to contribute to the war effort by planting, fertilizing, harvesting, storing their own fruits and vegetables so that commercially grown food could be exported to support our troops. Company grounds, parks, backyards, vacant lots became prime agricultural real estate. Amateur gardeners, provided with instruction pamphlets on how, when, and where to sow, became overnight farmers. Young school children were enlisted as soldiers of the soil. Shortly after the United States was drawn into the Second World War, these plots, known as victory gardens, began to reemerge. In 1942, roughly 15 million families planted victory gardens. A few years later, by 1944, an estimated 20 million victory gardens produced roughly 8 million tons. This was the equivalent of 40% of all of the fruits and vegetables that were consumed in the United States. So think about that for a minute. It's kind of mind-boggling. Almost half of our fresh fruit and vegetables in a time of need was being grown on our front lawns. It's no secret the 2016 election has amplified this country's faults and our challenges. But one thing I'm sure of, black or white, Republican or Democrat, male or female, Americans have an incredible ability to unite and to support one another. We all deserve access to healthy, nutritious, and affordable food. It's not a bipartisan issue, it's a basic human right. When you think about it, all of us sitting here were faced with a similar task to those soldiers of the soil that came before us. Yet it's evolved, right? Back then it was just about output. Now it's about growing food in a way that betters human and environmental health. But if there's one thing the Victory Garden era showed us, it's that we're best at fixing problems when we work together. We can't work together if we're unable to be courageous, compassionate, and deeply connected. In other words, to be truly vulnerable. And I think that part of the solution, as we move forward, lies within how we change the very nature of how we conduct ourselves in business. Make connections, don't go it alone. For our Victory Gardeners and for us, it was all about connection. It's the universal reason why we're all here, the spark that brings purpose and meaning to our lives. It doesn't matter whether you work in social justice, mental health, fashion, food. What we know is that the ability to feel connected is why we're here, and it's what gives us purpose. I think one of the greatest cultural barriers preventing us from actualizing real and deep connections is the importance that we place on going it alone. We equate success to not needing anyone and to being totally and utterly self-sufficient. So why is it so easy to lend a hand, but not always take one? The truth is we are both the people who need help and the people who provide it. Invest in people and relationships. At Dig In, mostly for the better, but sometimes for the worse, partners have become our friends. Already hard conversations about price, spec size, logistics get that much harder when something goes awry, and you just really hope the person on the other end of the line actually likes you and will pick up your phone call. What if not taking these tiny, drought-affected cauliflower means that they're just going to double the price of squash on the next delivery? For us, that never happens. And the reason why is because these relationships that we've built, they're built when both parties really express vulnerability. To us, it's a bit of a paradox. It's something we generally want to see in others, this idea of vulnerability, but we don't want them to see it in ourselves. I tell you what, when we're hiring or working with partners at Dig In, it's the first thing we look for. People with the courage to fail and make mistakes, the compassion to show kindness to themselves and to others, and an authentic connection to what we and they are doing. As humans, the more vulnerable we are, the more afraid we are. So we try and numb vulnerability by controlling everything. In other words, we try and make the uncertain certain. We iterate and we perfect, and we tell everything's great. It's just fine. Being vulnerable in business doesn't mean that you need to bare your soul. It does mean that you no longer have to pretend that everything's amazing all the time. You can and you should share challenges, failures, struggles, and of course on the flip side, success, delight, and excitement when things do go your way. This openness to uncertainty and imperfection is the very reason our construction managers can call us and tell us when the water main broke and we just can't open for business that day. Our farmers can call in the middle of a drought and tell us that the crop is just not coming out of the ground. Or one of our general managers, a single mom, can go home because her babysitter called out. Rather than get upset by circumstances or mistakes or both, we provide the space to fix them and to learn from them. Our chef and culinary director, Matt Weingarten, uses the saying, chefs, not recipes, when thinking about how to fill our growing need of young cooks. We firmly believe that authentic relationships lead to a patient encouragement of growth. We can't ever expect to change the food system without help. And to inspire a community of people to join the fight, we need their buy-in. Which is why we're planning to start our own culinary education center, born out of our very own, real, working farm. The core of our farm project has always been rooted in our desire to understand the pressure points, the challenges, and the opportunities that our producers deal with on a daily basis. Farmers bring unique insights to the food industry, which we think are often silenced in the noise. The good food movement needs more than just people ideologically invested in change. It needs people who want to work the land and who want to cook in the kitchens. There's no doubt the future of food needs holistic solutions, which is why we're training our chefs to go out in the world and become farmers, environmentalists, nutritionists, businessmen, and hopefully one day teachers. I believe there's another way to do business and to build a happy, healthy food future. We dream of a world where change is happening from the bottom up, from an educated group of planetarians. So just imagine young chefs cooking exceptional local vegetables, sourced from passionate farmers, maybe preserving flavorful heirloom varieties, and kids demanding carrot sticks instead of fries in their school cafeteria. And what if all that took was a new perspective on how to conduct business, if all that took was a little bit more vulnerability in the workplace? I leave you with a simple call to action. Next time you're brunching with a friend or a bunch of friends, stop telling them work is great. Open up about what's really going on. The next time your boss asks for an input on an idea, give him your wildest, most passionate solution, not what you think she wants to hear. Knowing full well that there are no guarantees, start working on that business idea that's been on the shelf for months, if not years. When we work and we live from this courageous place of vulnerability, we can connect, invest, embrace, and nurture. If we do this together and in support of one another, ours will be the generation that takes us back to the Garden of Victory. Thank you.